What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, and back with some more Joni Mitchell, and we're moving toward the end of her 1969 album Clouds. Thank you again to Nicola. And the next track is it the fiddle and drum, or the fiddle and the drum? Which I would argue that second definite article is not needed. Indeed, that's just the editor brain in me. Don't let it bother you. But yes, the fiddle and the drum. So of course, I immediately wonder if part of the sonic arrangement will be a fiddle and a drum. Nevertheless, I will note that most of her songs I've heard so far have a relatively sparse instrumental arrangement anyway, sometimes just her voice and her acoustic guitar. But yes, I wonder, of course, also if the fiddle and drum could be objects in whatever story we're about to hear. There's no wider context in the title. It's not the fiddle and drum and the situation in which they are used or relevant, so I'll just have to see what I can catch on a first listen. This is Joni Mitchell. The track is The Fiddle and the Drum, and it's from her 1969 album, Clouds.
And so once again, my dear Johnny, my dear friend, and so once again, you are fighting us all. And when I ask you why, you raise your sticks and cry, and I follow, my friend. How did you come to trade the fiddle for the drum? You say I have turned like the enemies you've earned, but I can remember all the good things you are. And so I ask you, please, can I help you find the peace and the star? Oh, my friend, what time is this to trade the handshake for the fist? And so once again, oh, America, my friend. And so once again, you are fighting us all. And when we ask you why, you raise your sticks and cry, and we follow, my friend. How did you come to trade the fiddle for the drum? You say we have turned like the enemies you've earned, but we can remember all the good things you are. And so we ask you, please, can we help you find the peace and the star? Oh, my friend, we have all come to fear the beating of your drum.
So the answer was Acappella. The answer also was that the fiddle and the drum are representative instruments contrasting a more peaceful creativity with a warlike disposition. And seemingly, if I'm reading this right, and there was obviously, I think, a big hint in the middle of that, that this is perhaps from the personified perspective of another nation state, another nation historically, like linguistically, looking at the United States, America, and saying that they can remember what made America exceptional or admirable, the idea of truly, or at least somewhat representative government rather than monarchy, rather than just outright autocracy or oligarchy and this, sort of shining city on a hill as those who are wont to talk about the founding fathers, but suggesting that somewhere along the way they traded that fiddle for the drum, with again the drum representing a marching drum, leading young boys and men off to war, in some cases to fight against foes who maybe are not as villainous or antagonistic as the national rhetoric would suggest. Now, okay, this is 69. Of course, I'm thinking about the years-long involvement in Vietnam, and of course the idea of the domino theory and the U.S., whether overtly or covertly, getting involved in violent conflicts and bombing raids in any country where there was a hint that a socialist government or an overtly communist regime could prevent, the American understanding of Western hegemony and capitalism from remaining or taking root. So it sounds again like the perspective of maybe the English people and government looking at the US and saying, look, we're now a bit scared of you because any good qualities that you have seem to be very quickly swapped out or traded for the march of your war drum, where you burn down other peoples and places around the world. And couldn't we help you find that peaceful disposition once again, the idea of you being a more admirable democratic republic and not one that just pays lip service to those types of values when actually overthrowing or violently attacking governments and countries around the world who have brought a particular government to power through at least a majority assent, just because they happen to have a different political or economic view than you. So again, maybe I'm reading too much into that. Maybe the Johnny of the song is more narrowly defined, and maybe the reference to America isn't as big and personified as it seems. But what I heard from the tune seems to suggest, again, that this is a critique, but also an appeal, a reaching out to America and asking it to find a peaceful disposition and to lay down arms, to re-pick up the fiddle, and to be part of a larger community, an international understanding that isn't so unilateral, destructive, and warlike, and thus an attempt to ask the United States to be what it's supposed to be, or what its rhetoric claims that it is. So either way, her voice is stunning. It's maybe, I think, the only fully a cappella tune I've heard from her so far. There's been some moments, I think, where her voice was singular and maybe the guitar gave it space, but yeah, from start to finish, a cappella, and carrying the entire thing on her very, not only powerful voice, but the moral rectitude and the, again, the reaching out, the appeal to the better nature of America should it be recoverable, that comes across in her vocal delivery too. So yeah, a stunning tune. I don't feel like it was that long. I want to say it's like 3 minutes maybe. Not even that, like about 2.5 or so. But it, like, the story of what I thought was happening, it felt much longer and more significant than only a 2.5 minute tune. So yeah, a really remarkable track. I'm looking forward to how the album ends. In the moment, I'm forgetting, is there one more tune? I do have the folder open, so give me a moment. Yeah, one more tune, both sides, comma, now. So I'm interested by the phrasing and punctuation there, both sides now, as opposed to just both sides without a reference to time, and that just the way the phrase has that halting pause in the middle. So we'll talk about that when we come back to it. But once again, shout out to Nicola for sharing, to Mark for commenting, and others who've taken an interest in this deep dive. Very much enjoying it. It was off a little bit longer than I intended. It was over a month, so I'll try to get back around to it a bit more swiftly next time. Let me know what you think. We'll see you next time. Peace.